I'm doing great. Thank you, Anthony. It's good to
Yeah,
be here.
so yeah, I mean, it's been some time. You say that you've been doing some storytelling, some coaching, and some even some voice acting as well. So
Yeah,
how's that been?
that's the crazy one.
Right. Well, do tell.
Well, so I wrote this, I had started writing this journal, about a decade ago as a way to process some of the trauma from childhood. The therapist was all like, this would be good for you. I was like, but as I was working on it, I started to feel like, yeah, maybe this was good for me. And so about a year into it, I had written all this material and I sat down with my mom one day. She'd been a very focal part of it and not in a very positive way, but it was a really like a sobering moment because, as I sat there and I read the chapters to her, we cried together and it was very emotional. And she looked at me and she was like, "You've got to publish this." And I was like, that was not the response I was expecting because I was like, you did hear what I wrote, right? And
Right.
she was like, yeah, but she's like, it's beautiful. And I said, but it doesn't really paint you great. And she says, that's my cross to bear. I did those things and I have to own them. But this is a story that you need to tell because people need to hear it. And it resonates. And I heard her, but sometimes we don't make decisions very quickly for whatever reason. Fear holds us back, doubt holds us back, our own insecurities hold us back. We make excuses. I put it back on the shelf and I didn't do anything with it. So she ended up passing away and it still was on the shelf. So about a year or so ago, I decided to pick it back up and I said, I think it's time to put this together and actually turn it into something meaningful because it was something that she saw in me and saw as this vision of what could be. And I think it's time to honor that. I'm at a place where I'm ready to say, okay, I'm going to share this story. So I went and I did the work, hired a content editor who was like, oh, slash out all this. And I was like, oh my
Wow.
you brought it bone dry. But
Mm,
sometimes that's what you got to do, right? You got to take out all the noise to
yeah.
get to really the heart of it. And what I ended up with after, all of the slashing and the cutting and the editing was just, I guess, for lack of a better word, was just beautiful, raw story. And so I decided to release it on the anniversary of her passing. So this will be 6 years from when she passed away. And I wanted to do that to honor her, to tell her that, look, I know that the story doesn't paint you as the best person, but you were my motivation, you were my champion, and you changed, right? So she made those changes in her own life, and we aren't defined by our circumstances or the mistakes that we've made in the past. We are defined by the choices that we make in our present, right? That's decisions that we make today are what create our tomorrow. So
Yeah.
that's why I did
And
the book.
that's